Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And yet again, it is a pleasure for me to sit here before these wonderful faces. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our deeds. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is one of the beneficial moments of meeting together. My brothers and sisters in Islam, in the 21st century we live in, we are experiencing an era of Jahiliyyah similar to the one that existed before the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One where the fragment of society is corrupt. We all know that the nation, any nation, is built on units of families. And the families are built on units of individuals within that family. For this reason, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down the Quran to us, He explained in one of the surahs by saying, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. O you who believe, save yourselves first and then your family from the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the individual. After addressing the individual, He tells this individual who will get married or is married to look after and protect their family, their children, and if he is a man, his wife, if she is a mother, her children, together. But you cannot do so unless you fix yourself first. This is an indication that the world is based on the family unit, which is based on the individual. And Allah does say in the Quran, إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah will not change the state of a people from a bad state to a better one until the individual changes himself or herself to a better state in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. For this reason, brothers and sisters, I begin by saying there is a famous quote which I read once, and it has such deep meaning that agrees with the Islamic teachings. We always complain that our children do not obey us, but they do not fail to imitate us. What we do and how we speak is the biggest form of teaching our children. Our children imitate us, and what becomes of them later on is what their children will imitate in them. So the first thing is, brothers and sisters, before I speak about the rights of the parents, is that first of all, the onus is on the parents first and foremost to create a relationship with their children before they grow up and become what we call independent. As soon as they hit the age of teenagers, we know, and you men know, and you sisters know how it is. You've been through it. When you became teenagers, especially the men, we begin to develop a slight ego. And if we don't look after it, we like to declare independence. In the past, the daughters remained a little bit more loyal to the family and the parents. And the boy was taught to become independent. In the 21st century we live in, and especially after World War I, the fall of the Khilafah, the last of the Khilafah, which was the Ottoman Empire, whereby the clinging to the deen and its teachings had lost its value, and the kings and sultans and princes and the Khulafa begin to think materialistically, thinking about position. People among the Romans and the Byzantines and even at the time of the Mongols, they were invading the Muslim lands while the Muslims were arguing who is better, Ali radiallahu anhu or Muawiyah. Time has changed. World War I occurred, and whoever is responsible we understand they are the enemies of the Khilafah, the enemies of Islam. They wanted to break this bond of this Islam which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us in the Quran once and for all. And the best way they did it was first of all to divide us into nations. I'm coming to the topic inshallah very soon. It's very important to know this. To divide us into nations, calling us nationalities. And they put this love in our hearts as though this is what needs to be done, as though this is normal, to create our own flags, to have an identity separate from anyone else. And we gave names to different countries in our different flags based on our color, and we created our own language. Obviously there were languages before, but we called this language attached to the flag or to the nationality. We think that this is good, but in fact this was one of the plans of dividing. When they did that and we fell for the trap, what happened? The Muslim families themselves began to divide as well into tribalism. And this is when I said we've returned back to Jahiliyyah. Al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in his last sermon in Hajj, 3 months before he died, he gave his last sermon to the Muslims and said to them, among the words he said to them were, and leave the practices of Jahiliyyah behind me, for today I step on it and it is beneath my feet. Do not return striking each other's necks and cutting off the family ties that share the womb. Leave tribalism and nationalism alone behind you. For those who followed it before you, I'm giving you the meaning of what he said. For those who followed it before you were destroyed. It is natina. It is like a stinking carcass. So first they divided us into nations. Then we became into tribal warfare. Then the families themselves begin to divide. The brother with his brother, the brother with his sister. Until you found within one family unit, in the Western culture, unfortunately in the Muslim world, we've taken on this attitude where the boy and the girl grow up to the point where they become teenagers and they feel that they must now leave their parents and run their own course in life, as though the parents have no longer any right towards their children, because now they're adults. And the West placed a number, an age. They said 18, or in some countries 19 or whatever it is, but 18 in general. When you become 18, you're an adult, boy and girl. Again, they placed an age. They didn't just stop with nationalism and independence, they placed an age. When you're 18, then you are completely independent. And what does it mean? It means that they can drive. I don't know how it is in Sri Lanka, but in Australia, the Western world, you can drive and now you can buy liquor and drink alcohol. And that you'll be imprisoned, and if you go with a partner who is under 18, it's considered pedophilia, and all these things begin to apply to that individual. Telling the boy and the girl, when you're 18, you've got to now detach yourself from the family unit in an indirect manner. And this is exactly what is happening. I recall, wallahi, I remember when I was about 21 years old, we had a neighbor, an Australian neighbor, but these were what we call Anglican background. So they came from Britain, and they're something like 7th or 8th generation Australians. We call them the white collar Australians, the original rednecks, if you like. They're the original people who came into Australia the time of the Aborigines with Captain Cook. I don't know if you know the history behind it. But there was a mother who was our neighbor. She asked me, how old are you? I said, I'm 21. She said, oof, and you're still living with your parents? I said, of course. She said, as soon as my son hit 19, I wanted him out. I asked, but why? She said, that's it. He can go on along with his life. I'm not going to sit there looking after him even after when he's 19. It's a burden. I can't stand having him in my home. I said, it's amazing. In our culture, it's very different, quite the opposite. our parents look after us and care for us from when we are born until we hit this age, when we are able to look after ourselves. And now we have to repay them. Instead of them looking after me, now it's my turn. So I live with them to look after them. And I share in the expenses and I cater for them and so on and so forth. Somehow it didn't register in her head. I don't know. She said, oh, I can't stand it. My son's out. And it reminded me of one of the... I'm not talking about these particular Australians. She was a very nice lady, actually. Good character in every other way. But this concept, this character, reminded me of one of those Discovery channels about the animal kingdom. About the crocodile, the reptiles. The crocodile lays its eggs, and the only thing it does is that it puts some dirt on the eggs and goes off, the mother. It doesn't know who its husband is. Doesn't know, doesn't care, and the crocodile's gone. The eggs have to hatch, and it's up to them, survival of the fittest. They hatch, and they've got to survive. If you survive, you survive. If you don't, well, bad luck. It's your life, not mine. It also reminded me of the ayah in Surah Al-Ankabut, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. Allah says, the example or the similitude, the analogy of those who take as authority figures, as those who govern their affairs, who tell them how to live their lives. Those who take these as their governors of their lives, whether it be idols, whether it be government of a particular sort, whether it be a people, a civilization other than the Islamic one, who allow them to govern how they live in their homes and outside and in their hearts and how they think in their ideology, are like the spider. The spider who creates for itself a family, a bait, a house. And verily indeed, the home of the spider is among the most weakest. لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, if only they knew. Past scholars, when they went into the tafsir of this ayah, they were thinking of the web of the spider itself. The web. They said, well, by looking at the web, we can see that the threads of the web are the weakest. The easy breeze, just a simple breeze, can make this web come apart. You touch it, it's gone. Those are the past scholars. Contemporary scholars, they said, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains at the end of it, says, لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, if only they knew. And they studied saying, if only they knew what? About the spider's home. Everybody knows that the web is weak. But then they said, it could also mean the actual family makeup of the spider. And when they looked at scientific evidence and research, they found that a female spider, when the male spider mates with it, and usually the male spider is smaller in build than the female spider. I don't know if you knew this. It's smaller in size. It mates with the female spider. The female spider becomes pregnant with dozens and dozens of babies. And once it does that, the female spider turns against the male spider while the male spider tries to run away. But it catches the male spider 90% of the time and kills him. The wife kills her husband. Out of my life. I don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. I can work. I've got my own income. Like that. I can look after myself. You've done what you want. I got what I received. I don't need you anymore. Then it gives birth to the spiders. Its babies turn against each other while the female spider runs away. The spiders begin to fight. Some of them run, some of them kill each other. Survival of the fittest. There is no family makeup that is bonding them. Contemporary mufassirun say, Allah knows best. This is the fabric of families, the society today, of how families work, like the family of the spider. And we can see in the Western world that this is truly the case. And I'm not here to have a go at the Western world, but what I am saying is the truth. Statistically, scientifically, by research, even among non-Muslims read about it. It's all over the internet and in their own books. I once had an interview with the Age newspaper back in Australia, in Melbourne. And they asked me about Islam and the family, and I said, Islam places the utmost importance on family. I said, you have a lot to learn from the Islamic way of life in relation to family makeup, because you are yet to learn a lot from it. They said, we are a Christian country who follows the Bible, that, and a lot of us are secular. I said, that's the problem. In a secular society, you make up your laws and you make up your concepts and principles as you learn them along the way. And that's why you're changing your laws. As for a Christian society, Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, is an honorable prophet of ours. However, he was not a married man. For this reason, Christians themselves have little understanding of what a family should be, even though they have some understanding through the Bible. If you do not have the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we have ample information about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family to minute detail. Then you cannot complete your understanding of a family life. My brothers and sisters in Islam, when I was a public relations officer when I was back at university, public relations officer at a local masjid, one of the most popular masjids in Melbourne, Islamic Council of Victoria, Society of Victoria, one of the oldest. And we used to receive so many phone calls. One day I received a phone call on Jumu'ah, and it was a lady from Lebanon, elderly lady. She's on the phone and she asks me, are you the person who gives the khutbah sometime? Or you translate in English? I said yes. And then suddenly her voice changed. She started to cry. She said to me, can't you speak to the young people? I said, about what? She said, my son, he beats me up every day. Last night he put me on the floor and he trampled on me. He stepped on my back. And what am I saying to him? Because he asked me for money and I wouldn't give him money. And I know that he's going using it on drugs. I know that he's going out and doing things. I don't want harm to come to him. But when I don't give him money, he starts to beat me up. This is not the first time I hear these. But Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us about one of the signs of the last hour, is that children who grow up will begin to beat their own parents. In Tirmidhi, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us, when the son, he brings his friends closer and his father further, favors his friends upon his father, above his father. أن تلد الأمة ربتها, أن تلد الأمة ربتها, which is in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, that when the woman begins to give birth to a daughter who later on begins to have authority over her. This is the correct, one of the most correct opinion among the scholars. Did you know a time will come when people will curse their own mother and father? This is happening every day. They curse their own mothers and fathers. We hear it all the time. I had a neighbor. I used to hear them every day, almost every day, day in, day out. The daughter used to scream at her mother, and I used to hear it. And the daughter would go to the backyard, screaming out the words, I hate you. It's not fair. I hate you. I hate your guts. This is what's happening. And the mother swearing at her daughter, and the daughter swearing at her mother. We hear so much about the society today, but what makes me very sad and sorrowful is, unfortunately, a lot of this information now is emanating from Muslim communities themselves. As a teacher, I hear students say this in the playground. Students swear at each other's mothers and fathers, and the other one laughs about it. They accept it as joking. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "May Allah curse the one who swears at his own father or mother." They said, "Ya Rasulullah, who would curse their own mother and father?" He said, "There will come a time when people will curse others' mothers and fathers, and by that they have cursed their own." And I will give you the reference shortly, inshaAllah, about that. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught us about how our nation can be built on strength and good morals, and how we can return back to our strength and once earned glory. It starts from the individual, secondly from the family makeup, and then it extends into the neighborhood, to the community, which makes up society, which makes up a country, which makes up the world. There is a little story just before I go into the rights of the parents. There was a alim in one of the Western countries.